I'm going to do that awkward thing where everybody's going to have to watch me change my displays.
Do you want me to stop sharing my screen or do you want to share yours?
Yeah, maybe stop sharing and I'll share mine. Oh, wait, no, you have to share yours.
Now? Okay.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for your patience. We're testing a new model where you are all actually, you know what I'm going to do? Because there's nobody in person, I will stop using the big monitor. And we'll just do a fancy edit of all of this out. All right. Okay. Great. OK. Bonjour et bienvenue à tous et à toutes. Nous sommes heureux de vous accueillir à la 6e session des ateliers de la série Boîte à outils en sciences humaines numériques. Je suis Jada Watson, coordonnatrice des sciences humaines numériques à l'Université d'Ottawa. Good morning and welcome to a new session of the DH Toolbox series. I'm Jada Watson, coordinator of digital humanities here at the University of Ottawa. Before we begin today, I want to start our session with an Indigenous land affirmation. Nous rendons hommage au peuple algonquin, gardien traditionnel de cette terre. Nous reconnaissons le lien sacré de longue date, l'unissant ce territoire qui demeure non cédé. Nous rendons également hommage à tous les peuples autochtones qui habitent Ottawa, qu'ils soient de la région ou d'ailleurs au Canada. Nous reconnaissons les gardiens des savoirs traditionnels, jeunes et âgés. Nous honorons aussi leurs courageux dirigeants d'hier, d'aujourd'hui et de demain. We pay respect to the Algonquin people who are the traditional guardians of this land. We acknowledge their long-standing relationship with this territory, which remains unceded. We pay respect to all Indigenous people in this region from all nations across Canada who call Ottawa home. We acknowledge their traditional knowledge keepers, both young and old, and we honor their courageous leaders, past, present, and future. Thank you for joining us today. We're launching our series in a hybrid format where we hope to eventually welcome guests in the creator space, which is room 302 in Perez Hall on campus, and welcome the rest of our guests virtually from across Canada and the United States. Today we're pretty much a virtual or a remote audience, so we'll keep it simple today. But in the future, if you're in Ottawa, feel free to join us in the creator space. Today's hands-on workshop covers the basics of Git and GitHub for version control and collaboration. Git is a version control software, and GitHub is an online repository to easily store and share your projects. They've been widely used and adapted by academic communities for their research. In this beginner workshop, Yoo Young Lee will introduce key concepts of Git, create your own Git repository, publish it to GitHub, and clone fork one of the existing GitHub repositories. No previous knowledge is required, but of course, please follow along on your laptops for the interactive component of the workshop. Our workshop leader today is Yoo Young Lee, who is joining us remotely. Yoo Young is currently head information technology at the University of Ottawa Library. When not advocating for sustainable open scholarship and importance of web archiving, she can usually be found gardening flowers or watching Korean soap drama. So I'm going to be monitoring the chat and the Q&A today, so feel free if you're feeling a little bit lost. Please just make sure that you let us know, and I will find an appropriate moment to interrupt you Young and ask your question. So I will be monitoring that for you. And I will now turn the screen over to Yoo Young Lee.
Thank you. Can you share the URL to the slides? Because for some reason I can't.
Yeah, no worries. That's my issue. So I just gave you access. So you'll have access to do that now. And what I'll do if you can get going is I'll share them for you.
Thank you. Okay, so let's get started. So it's gonna be a hands-on workshop. So I want you to follow me, but sometimes it's better if you see sort of the slides side by side on your screen as well. So so there is a link to my slides, and then you can download my slides and then follow up through there as well. And then if you can access or if you have any issues, just let me know. So for learning outcomes from this workshop, so you will be able to understand sort of the basic concepts of version control system and Git. And then after that, you can perform sort of the basic Git commands and then work with the remotes and also use GitHub desktop. But I'm gonna demonstrate both sort of the command line and then after GitHub desktop, sort of the user interface. So that's sort of the outcome from this workshop. And then again, this workshop is designed for beginners. So if you never use Git or anything like that, that's going to be perfect. So for schedule, we are going to spend first as sort of the introduction to version control and then Git, and then we're going to use Git locally. And then after that, I'm going to introduce you to sort of the GitHub, working with the remotes, more about the collaboration, and then I'm going to wrap up this workshop. So I ask before this workshop, hopefully you have Git installed into your local computer. So there is a version for Windows and then Mac, as well as GitHub desktop. You can use any of the text editors that you like, but for this workshop, it's not about the coding workshop. So we can simply use Notepad by default as well. So you don't really need a fancy text editor either. And then I hope that you already have a free GitHub account. So any questions sort of that before we start or we jump into the version control system? Anyone has the URL to the slides as well? Okay, then let's get started. Okay, so the version control system is sort of the software that tracks changes to a file or set of files over time. So before version control systems era, we used to save so many files like with names like final draft 2, final draft final modified, rear final draft version 2 final. And then like we don't know exactly like which one really that was really for final. So you may experience that you don't know which one that was really final version of your document even before the version control system. So the VCS basically prevents this behavior by letting us easily track and manage changes with just only one single document. The version control system is used not only in the software development industry, but also any online applications these days that you use daily for your work, like the MS Word, which provide a version control tool that automatically creates versions, show you what and who changed between its version, and gives a full history of a document. In addition, you can easily go back to the previous version that you've worked. So it's not just for the fancy Word or the software development industry. And then the version control system, so as I mentioned, let you when a file changes, who changed it, and also easily roll back to those changes. but this is really best for text files, not yet ideal for binary files like the video or images. Some of the VCS it allows you to store images and videos, but it doesn't show you like what exactly changes between those images and then videos. I know that some of the VCS systems sort of that let you easily track those changes like subversion and then perforce helix score, but it's not really great yet to compare easily like the binary files like the text files. So there are so many version control systems available, either free, open source, or pay and commerce. And then here is a list of sort of the most known version control systems. And I also provide a link if you are interested in learning more about those systems. But today we are gonna use Git because Git is free and open source system, and then it's the really most powerful VCS. It's used almost for everyone in the software industry, but now also in academia as well. It is a distributed system, so that means basically its contributor has a full copy of repository. Then they can interact with the track files without needing really the coordinating or the centralized server. So it can be used on a client machine. That means your computer or like the web server. And then also you can use Git with or without network. That means you can use without internet. And then also it's beneficial for like just your solo projects or sort of the collaborative project when you work with other people. So for today's demo, like I'm gonna use Mac, but you can follow me with Windows. I've tested on Windows and it worked fine as well. And then I'm gonna use iTerminer to Terminer as my command line tool, but you can follow me with the Git bash on Windows if you download the Git for Windows. So any questions? Okay, then I'm gonna demonstrate the first one. So give me a second. Okay, oops, that's my Korean. Okay, so first thing that you need to do when you download Git into your computer, you have to configure your Git environment. There are so many Git configuration, but the most used one is your email and then username. So basically let Git know what username that you use and then email as well. So we are gonna do that one first, but there are sort of the two levels. So one is when you install Git, you can set up globally. That means like it applies to all repositories in Git. But sometimes you want to be anonymous with the one specific projects, or if you want to use a different email, so like one for your personal projects, then you can use your personal email, and then the other one you can use for your work, and then you can use your work email. Then like you can use sort of the local. That means it applies to only that specific repository that you are going to create it. So for today's demonstration, we are going to use sort of the global. That means we're going to apply those settings to all your repository. So the first one is you can type, in order to set the Git configuration, you can type Git config and then indicate that I'm going to apply this to all my repository, then global, and then type user.email, and then put your user email. So, I mean, in my case, I'm going to use just my personal email. And then if you want to see it, you can see it like git config user.email. And then it tells me that like I set my user email as glide18@hotmail.com. And then same thing for your username. So I'm gonna config, and then again, I'm gonna apply it to globally. So global, and then username, Yoo Young Lee. And then if I want to see how it was set up, then just same thing, git config username, and then it tell me yes. In the configuration file, it's Yoo Young Lee. And then if you want to see sort of the older list of the Git configuration, you can type git config L, and then it tells you sort of the generic Git configuration setup files. So whenever, I mean, when you install Git for your first time, that's the first thing that you need to do to set up the Git configuration. So any questions so far about the Git configuration?
There's nothing in the chat, Yoo Young.
Okay. So that's the first exercise. And then the next step, so when you created sort of the project folder in your work computer, then you want to use Git, that we have to tell Git that like, oh, I want to use Git in my project file. So in order to do that, we are going to use a command saying git it like init, that means initialization. So that creates sort of the new Git repository. And then that's usually your first comment when you use Git. So let's create sort of the empty folder. So give me a second. I'm going to change my folder directory first. So let's create sort of the empty folder. So we are going to use the command line. So mkdir, that means make directory. So it creates sort of the new directory. Now I'm going to call this is DH 2020. And then if you see, we created DH-2022 directory. And then I'm going to move to that directory. So we are going to use the command again, cd DH in 2020. And then now I'm in that DH-2022 folder. So we created an empty folder. Then now we are going to tell Git that like, oh, I'm going to apply Git into my DH-2022 folder. So as I mentioned, in order to do that, we use Git init. I don't know how to pronounce, to be honest, but I just use init. So we are going to tell the Git to initiate my folder. And then now it says initialize empty Git repository in my DH-2022 folder. So if you type ls-a, then it tells you, yes, here Git is initialized in your folder. So after that, that's usually the second step that you have to do in order to use Git before. So any questions so far? And then this is the screenshot if you follow when you use Windows, the Git Bash software. So the colors and everything a little bit different, but basically it tells you exactly the same thing. Okay. Then before jumping to the other exercise, I'm going to explain sort of the basic concept of the Git, how they interact about between like the three different streams. So there are three different places in Git where file changes can reside. And then those are working directory, staging area, and then repository. I know that I mentioned a lot about repository, but we will get there. So first one is the working directory. So when you work on your project and then made some changes, basically you are dealing with your projects in the working directory first. So I created the empty folder and then I initialized the Git. So whenever I create the file for the first time, all those files will be in the working directory first. So this project directory is available on your computer's file system. So all those changes you make will remain in the working directory until you actually add them to the staging directory that we will cover later. So it contains sort of the current version of the files that you work, and then as sort of the sandbox where you can edit and then make changes and then do whatever you want to test out. So to better understand about the working directory, so let's do some exercise again. So let's create a new file in the directory and then open any editor that you like. So I use the Atom. So I'm gonna open the Atom here. But again, you can use any editor that you wanted to use, like the Notepad. That's really not a problem. So this is my Atom editor. So I'm gonna create a new file under my DH 2022 folder. And then I'm gonna just type hello everyone. This is for 22 D8 toolbox. And then you can save as hello.txt. Then if you go back to the command line tool, if you type git status, it tells me that yes, there is a new file created, but that file is not tracked yet by Git. So the first comment that I use is the git status, and then git status basically it displays sort of the state of the working directory and then staging area. So like now in my working directory, there is a new file called hello.txt, but that's not staged or that's not tracked yet by Git. So in order to do that, we need to add that file to the staging directory. So staging area means a file maintained by Git that contains all of the information about what files and then changes are going to into your next commit. That means what we need to save in the repository. So, and then also it's very easy that you're allowed to add and remove those changes from the staging area as well. So in order to add the file that you just created in your working directory to the staging directory, we are going to use the command git add. So that means add a change in the working directory to the staging area. So in order to do that, so you can just type git add and then the name of the file that we just created. So we are going to tell Git that like, please add this hello text file from the working directory to the staging area. So git add and then hello text. And then after you put the git status again, and then now it tells me that yes, it is added to the staging area, but not yet in the repository. So any questions so far? Okay, then the finer concept repository. So repository is like a data structure used by Git to store metadata for a set of files and directories. So it contains the collection of the files as well as the history of changes made to those files. So repositories in Git is considered as your project folder. So it has all the project related data. And then the collections of edit has been submitted to the version control system. That's really for safe, like the safekeeping. So now, so far, we create a new file and then we edit that one to the staging area. And then finally, we want to commit that file to the repository. So in order to do that, we are going to use git commit command. So git commit captures a snapshot of the projects currently in the stage changes. So in order to commit a snapshot, so I'm going to use git commit and then -m, and then I'm going to add the message. So we can say first file hello.text creation. The commit message is really, really important because it tells you a short description of the change, and then it will give you sort of the idea of what we made changes when we commit for the other, especially when we collaborated a project with other people. So I'm going to put sort of as an example, like git commit -m and then the first message. And then now we created our first commit, and then we saved that one in the Git repository. So to recap the first, so mostly whenever, I mean, you're going to use mostly one time the git config and then git init for your project, but like git status, git add, git status, and then git commit is you're going to use really mostly for any projects. So any questions?
Nothing yet.
Okay, then let's practice one more time this basic concept, because that's really the basic concept of Git, and then you're going to use those syntax really, really a lot. So we already create the file hello.text, but let's modify the file, the hello text, and then create a new one called DH2022. So here, we can add in the hello text file, just say nice to meet you, and then save. And then I'm gonna create another new file, and then again, save under DH2022. And then in this file, I'm gonna just type this is intro to Git and GitHub at the 22 full DH Toolbox series. And then save as DH22 text. So what I did, I modified my hello text file, and then I created a new DH2022 text file. So if you go back, and then if you type git status, now Git tell me that like, oh, you modify hello text file, and then you created a new file called DH2022 text file, but that's not, again, the track. So we need to, again, add what I changes to the staging area and then the new file. So in order to do that, so I'm gonna type git add hello text, and then I'm gonna add DH2022 text file to the staging area. And then if you see the status, so now they are added to the staging area, but not committed yet. So we need to commit those files. So I'm gonna do the git commit and then put the message up. I modified hello text and creation of the new file of DH22 text. And then now that was my second commit. So this is sort of a screenshot of what I just demonstrated. Then commit. So any questions so far about the basic concept of the version control systems and then Git? And then let me know if I'm too fast or slow to follow me.
I'm not seeing anything in either the chat or Q&A just yet,
Okay.
but I definitely will let you know if something pops up.
Okay. So let's move to the Git log. So now we created a bunch of, we created 2 commits, and then sometimes you want to see like, again, like what had changes and then who made changes. So in order to do that, you can use git log. So git log syntax basically shows committed snapshots. And then it's a tool used for examining a repository's history and then finding sort of the particular version of a project. So in order to see that, if you put git log, and then you can see there is a commit ID, and then author, that was me, and then with my user email, and then the date, and then the git commit message. So basically it tells me what change was made. So they modify the hello text creation of the new file, and then another commit with the commit ID, and then again with the author and date, and then the commit messages. So now we have committed only 2, but like if you work more and more, then there will be a lot of commits, and then it will tell you exactly who, date, and then the commit message with the commit ID. So you can check sort of the history of the commit with the using git log. And then another like useful tool. So it tells me just like the git messages, but if you want to see sort of the detailed information about what changes, you can put like the git log and then -p. And then it tells you what exactly changes. So there is a difference between DH2022 and then file, and then actually we edit a new sentence in that file. And then for the hello text file, again, we added a new sentence, nice to meet you. So git log -p flags tell you more detailed information about what you changes, and then the comprehensive sort of the difference between those commit as well. And then now we have only 2, but let's say I want just to see the last one, then you can just put the git log and -1, and then it tell you just the last commit information. So I put like the git log cheat sheet. So there is more than you can do with the git log, like what type of information you can see in terms of the history. So you can look into that one as well. But for basic Git concept, we usually use like the -p flag, or just like the -2 or -n2. That means like just to see the latest version or the last 2 commit history. So that's the screenshot that I just demonstrated. So when you want to follow me later, then you can see here as well. And then the other concept that I want to explain. So if in the Git here, you see here commit and commit ID, and then head and master. So head means it's the current commit your repository is on. So it's basically sort of the pointer to tell you that like where you are in terms of the commit history. And then master is the name of the default branch when you created sort of the Git. And then we will cover more concept about the branch later, but master basically in most cases, master means sort of the main branch that you work on. You don't need to memorize this right now, but it will be useful kind of to conceptualize the concept of the head and master when we work with the branch. So the next one that I want to show you is the Git show. So basically, Git show is, so if you type Git show and then the commit ID or commit number, it tells you basically the detailed information about what you changes. It's very similar to git log -p, but I just wanted to let you know that there is another command that you can use, that is git show. And then the git difference is basically show changes between commits or commit and working directory. Again, it's very similar, but there are many syntax. So git difference, I mean, because we haven't really added anything in the working directory, that's why when you type git difference, there is no difference. But let's add a new sentence in the DH 2022 text file. Let's say here, today is Wednesday, September 28, 22, and then save. And then if you type here git difference, and then it tells you that between your last commit and then your working directory, there is a difference that you just added this sentence. Today is Wednesday, September 28, 22 to the DH 2022 text file. And then let's commit this one. So git status, it tells you that, yes, you modify this file. So now I'm gonna, before usually I type git add and then DH text file, but there is a command that you can do both, like add and commit at the same time if the file is already tracked by Git. So in order to do that, like git commit, and then you can put -a flag, and then -m to add a message saying edit a date in the DH22 text file. So we committed. And then again, if you type difference, it shows nothing because there is really no difference between the latest commit and then working directory. But you can use Git difference between the changes as well. But for this beginner class, I'm gonna just skip that. So there is a typo, sorry. So recap 2, so if you want to get more information about changes, those 3 are the main syntax that you can use. Git log is the most used one, to be honest, but you can use either git show and git difference as well. So any questions before we jump into the next command? Okay, so far we created 2 files, so DH2022 text and then hello text. Then let's say I don't really need DH2022 text file anymore. I mean, you can easily delete them in your like the Windows panel or something like that, but you can do it actually through the Git. So in order to do that, so let's put git rm. That means like remove files from a Git repository and then tell Git not to track a file anymore. So git rm and then dh22 to text. And then if you put git status, it tells you, oh, that file is deleted, but still not tracked by Git yet. So in order to do that, we need to git commit m, and then we need to commit say like remove the h2020 text file from the Git repository as we don't need it anymore. So that next time when I look through the Git history, I know what I did. So we delete that file from the Git repository. So if you type ls, now we have only the hello text file. And then you can rename or move file from one directory to the other as well. And then we are going to use git mv git, that means git move. So if I want to rename my hello text file to hi text file, in order to do that, just say git mv hello text, rename hello text to hi text. And then if you see status, again, it's renamed from hello text to hi text, but again, it's not committed. So we have to commit so that Git knows what has changed for this file. So same thing, git commit -m, and then just say I rename hello text to hi text. So we rename. So if you again see the file, it's changed to hi text. So that's I mean, there is a way to play around like the remove and then rename and then relocate in Git as well. But again, you can easily do through the user interface as well. And then I want to introduce git ignore file. So sometimes like you don't want to track all those files under your directory or folder. So .git ignore sort of indicates the file that tell Git like, oh, I don't want you to track those files. So just ignore them. So it could be dependency cache, compile code, or file generated at runtime or hidden system files. But most in the DH context, I guess like you have a lot of photos, but you don't want Git to follow, then you can use this one as well. So in order to demonstrate, so I'm gonna create .git ignore files first. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna use touch syntax saying create a new file .git ignore. And then if you see, because .git ignore is not visible file. So in order to see that, you have to use ls-la, and then you can see there is a file created git ignore. And then if you type git status, okay, so there is a file created git ignore, but again, it's not in the staging area yet. So we need to add git ignore to the staging area. So we use git add and then git ignore and then commit. So I just created edit git ignore file. So now we have the git ignore in our the directory. So let's sort of add a photo to sort of the, so now this is empty, but I'm gonna just say that like, don't follow the photos directory. So I'm gonna show you here. So here, I'm gonna just create a new folder, say photo. Then I'm gonna add just any photo. I'm gonna just add the sunflower photo to the photos directory, and then you can download actually the sunflower JPEG file from the link that I shared with you at the beginning of this workshop. So I just did, and then tell Git that I don't want you to follow my photo directory. So you can just say like photo, and then that means like don't track anything under photos folder. So if you go back to the command line and then put the git status here, we modify git ignore, and then okay, we can add this one saying here, don't follow .ds store either. So again, if you type git status, we modify the git ignore, and then you see now Git doesn't really bother any files called .ds underscore or photo, because we tell Git that like don't track any files mentioned in the .git ignore file. So again, we can add .git ignore to update, and then git commit message update git ignore file. Now we are clean. So the recap, so you can delete and rename files using git. So that's the command line git remove and then git move. And also you can use git ignore saying that like, oh, these are the ones that I don't want you to track or follow. So any questions so far?
Not a single one.
Does that mean good or?
Well,
Okay.
I think it's good.
And the next one I'm going to show you is the Git checkout. So the Git checkout sort of you can switch between different versions or files, commit, and branch. And then it is used to undo changes in the working directory. So let's add more sentence in the high text. So here we can add I love fall and then save. Then you realize that like, oh, this is not what I wanted. I mean, the other way you can easily remove this one, but like in Git, so you can see status first. So yes, it tells that like, oh, the high text file is modified, but again, then like, oh, I don't want to keep it. So in order to go back to the previous version, you can type git checkout hide text, then git status. No, the one that I just added is remove because we tell Git that like, oh, I don't want to keep the change that I made. So you can use git checkout in the working directory. But what about like if you make changes and then you add it to the staging area, then like you cannot really use git checkout. At the time you have to use git store. So here, go back to the text here, and then I'm gonna just say again, I love fall. Oh, and then I thought that I like it. So let's say I'm gonna add this one to the staging area. Then, oh, after that, you just realize, oh, I don't like it. So it's not committed yet, but it's in the staging area. So I'm gonna just type git restore -- stage hide text. And then see the status. So now you remove the change that you just added to the staging area and then remove that stage area to the working directory. But still, it is in the working directory. So in order to completely discard the change that you made, even in the working directory, you have to say git restore hide text. And then it's clean. So if you go back here, again, that change is gone. So you can use git restore after you actually edit to the staging area. But what if like you already committed? So in that case, you can use the git commit -- amend. So that's basically overrides the previous commit and then allow you to modify and then add change to the most recent commit. So for the demo, let's create a new file called full text. And then you're gonna add this one to the staging area because it's created and it's still in the working directory, but you want to add this one to the staging area. So git add and then full text. And then we are going to commit saying edit a new file called full text. So the file now is tracked by Git. But then like you realize that there is no content. We didn't really add any content. So if you go back to your text editor, full text file, it's basically empty. So like you're gonna add a new sentence, say I love fall. And then if you go back to, so see the git status. yes, the full text file is modified. So instead of created new commit, you can just commit amend m, then edit a new file called full text with content. Then if you see git log, the commit that we just did it, like just create a new file, it's gone because like we amended that commit with the new one saying add a new file called full text with the content. So that's the one, I mean, that's the screenshot. And then let's say the amend commit is not working. You completely reinverse sort of the change and then cancel the previous changes, then you can use the revert. The good thing about the revert is like it, instead of sort of the making like nothing really happened, it actually say you actually reverse. So next time, like when you go through the Git history, then you can see like, oh, I made these changes, but I actually revert back. That's really way better in terms of sort of the debugging, things like that. So for demonstration, so let's add more sentence in the full text file. I love full, but I'm gonna just put whatever. So, but full is short in Canada. Then if you see Git status, it tells you that like the full text file is modified. And then I'm gonna do commit and then add at the same time as I showed previously. So git commit -a-m new sentence edit. So I committed, but again, I don't like it, the sentence that I just added. So in order to do that, I can just say git revert head. So go back to the previous one. Here, save. So one file chain, 3 deletions. So if you see git log -2, so I did use sentence edit, but actually I revert back. So I discard the change that I made just previously. So if you go back to here, there is nothing in the full because I tell Git that like, I don't like it. So that's the screenshot. If you want to redo this work after this workshop. So there are many ways to sort of undo changes. So git checkout is mostly used when you just work in the working directory. And then git restore is used when you actually edit those changes to the staging area. And then git commit and then git revert, those are used after you actually committed to the Git repository. So any questions?
We have one, and Connie, you can go ahead and type it into the Q&A or the chat. It's coming soon, Yoo Young, I promise.
It's okay.
Here we go. If we forget to add a message to our commit, Terminal puts us into a space to add a message. Will you show us how to add a message that way and get out into the directory again?
You mean you forget the flag -m, or?
That's a good question. Yes.
Yes, you can do that. So let me add here. I love full, and then git status. And then I'm going to use git add full text first. And then if you commit like this, right? And then it opens the file here, then you can add the commit message here. So added a new sentence, save. And then close. Then yes, you can do that way as well.
Okay.
But I prefer git commit m dash because it's short and then clear. But yes, definitely you can just do the git commit as well. But it's the same thing.
Connie says she loves fall too.
That's my favorite season. Okay, so let's talk a little bit briefly about the branch. Oops. So as I mentioned, so when you create the Git for the first time, master branch is created by default. But you can create it so many different branches. So that means like usually the master is the clean working files, and then branch like whenever you want to test out or create something new, but you're not sure and then mess up with the master branch, you can always create a branch. So in order to do that, I can show you. So now we have only one branch because we've never created any other branch. So we have only master branch in our Git repository. So we can create a new branch just to add the dynamite lyrics. So let's say git branch and then lyrics dynamite. It creates a new branch. So if you type again git branch, you can see now we have two branches, master and lyrics underscore dynamite. Oops, there is a typo, but anyway. But still we are on the master branch. So in order to change, you can use the git checkout. So git checkout lyrics dynamite. Then now it tells you, oh, we switched to the branch to this one from master. Then like you can test out everything. But the other one that I want to show you, so you can do both actually, check out and then create a new branch at the same time. So you can put a git checkout -b and then lyrics dynamite it is. And then this command automatically create a new branch and also switch to that branch. So if you type the git branch and then now we have 3 branches and then now we are currently lyrics dynamite BTS. So that's the one that I showed you now. So working with the branch. So let's create a new file under lyrics dynamite BTS branch. So I'm gonna use the touch dynamite text and then git status. Now we have a new file called this. And then we're gonna add this one to the staging area. And then we're gonna commit. Say edit a new file, dynamite text. So it is created. So that's the screenshot. And then if you put, and then if you want to see the history, so let's put the git log -2. So this is the last commit. And then now it points to the lyrics dynamite BTS branch. So this file is created only under lyrics dynamite BTS branch, not master, not lyrics _ dynamite. So it's only created here. So it's important to know that one because I will show you later. And then let's go back to the master branch. So again, git check out master. And then now we are on the master. And then if you see, again, this file is not under master. So let's say I want dynamite text file that I created under lyrics dynamite BTS branch to the master. We call them sort of the git merge. So in order to do that, oops. Oh, sorry, I think I stepped ahead. So before doing that, I want to show you something, one more thing. Okay, so git branch. So we have a master and then lyrics dynamite BTS, but we didn't really use like this branch at all. So I want to delete that branch. So in order to do that, same thing, git branch and then -d and then the name of the branch that you wanted to delete. And then now we delete that branch as well. So you can do that. Okay, that's the one that I show you. So now like we did commit in the master and then we created sort of the new branch and then we work on like under the new branch and then we wanted to merge the change that we made under the branch to the master. So in order to do that, we are going to use the syntax git merge. So in order to do that here, it's simple. You have to be on the master branch. So check again where you are. So we are on the master branch and then say git merge lyrics dynamite BTS. Yes, so now we merge those two branches to the master. So if you see now we have the dynamite text file under master as well. So another way to see, you don't need to know this one, but I put as a reference as well. Oops, there's a typo, git log. So you can see like what we made change through the commit. So they had master, so now master and then lyric dynamite BTS branch, they are the same because we just merged to the master. So this is the screenshot that I just demonstrated. So the recap, so you can create as many branches as you want, and then it's actually recommended, especially when you want to test out or try something new. But after that, you test out and it works, and then you want it to merge to the master branch, then you can use git merge. So any questions?
I'm not seeing anything new just yet.
Good. So far we work on our local machine without any network. But now there is a new concept called remote. So to be able to collaborate on any Git project, you need to know how to manage your remote repository. So remote repositories are versions of your project that are hosted on the internet or network somewhere. So far we covered this part in the local, then now we are going to cover the remote part. So there are many online remote hosting services like the GitHub, GitLab, and then Bitbucket. But we're going to use GitHub for today, but you can use any of this because there are paid services, but there are free versions as well. So the GitHub is the internet hosting service for software development and version control using Git. It provides so many great features. And then it's free basically for educational purpose and open source software as well. And then the one thing that I really like about the GitHub is you can see you can actually organize by topic. So there are like the 676 public repositories under digital humanities tag. So if you want to see like what other digital humanities scholars work on or share their code, you can see here. It's really, really good. So the Git remote. So now like you have your folder in the Git in locally, but you want to basically you want to have your work online as well. So in order to do that, as I mentioned, I'm going to use the GitHub. So GitHub. I'm already logged in, but if you want to copy the work that we did to the online repository, first thing that you need to do, you have to create a new repository in Git. So again, it's online, it's very easy. So you can just say here, create a new, then I'm gonna put the age 2020, and then description, this is intro to Git and GitHub. And then I'm gonna make it private for now. And then don't initialize with the README file or git ignore or license, because if you do, sometimes there are conflict with or headaches, so you can add those files later. So at the beginning, you don't really need to add anything like that. Then create repository. So now you have a repo in GitHub. But now you have to link between this GitHub and then the one that you have in your computer, right? So in order to do that, so let's go. So this is sort of the screenshot again, just in case if you want to follow this later. So now we have to tell that like, oh, I created a remote repository on GitHub, but between my local one and then remote one, they need to be connected. So in order to do that, you need to use git remote syntax. So now I have nothing because I didn't really add anything. So in order to do that, you need to copy this URL. So you can just copy, and then you tell that git remote add, and then I'm gonna name as origin because that's the most used one. and then paste the URL that I just copied. Then if you see, again, now I have linked my local repository to the remote one. Still nothing because I haven't really pushed anything. So then I want to push the one that I work on to the GitHub repository. You can simply use git push, then origin master. So now I set it like, oh, copy the one that I have in my local repository to my GitHub repository. And then if you replace, now I have those, like the file that I have worked on my local. And then if it's your first time, Git will ask you about the credential manager, but you can just follow yes, 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 and then it will let you do that as well. And then I also explain like either way, you can use the personal access token. Oops. Then I show how to do that, and then either use Git credential manager here as well. And then Git fetch, let's say, so here, the nice thing about the online GitHub, it's really simple to use. So let's say at README, so I'm gonna change something here on online. And then here, they already create sort of I'm gonna just reuse their commit message that they suggest and then commit a new file. And then now I do have the README file here. But again, I just created the README file on GitHub. It's not on my local repository. So again, you have to sync between your remote and then your local one as well. So in order to do that, we are going to use git fetch. So first, git remote show origin. So now it says like my local one is outdated because there is a new change remotely. So I'm gonna use the git fetch origin master. So now I download it, but it's not merged yet. So in order to do that, you have to use git merge origin master. And then now see, I do have README file in my local as well. So this is, and then the other one, I'm not going to demonstrate because of the time, but so I use git fetch and that git merge, but you can do both at the same time using git pull. So it fetch and downloads content from a remote repository and then immediately update your local repository to match that content. So you can use that one as well. So see, it's sync between my local and remote. And then the GitHub desktop, so far I showed you through the command line, but GitHub desktop is really, really good. Even you don't need to type really anything. It's through the user interface. So again, you have to log in with your free GitHub account first. And then the fork, I want to mention that like there is a really good BH projects. And then like you just wanted to test out or play with someone else's work. So in order to do that, first you have to fork that repository to your GitHub one. So there is a button here on GitHub, say fork. So type fork, and then it will tell you create a new fork, but I already forked, so it will tell you, but like, see, I copied this repository from this person. And then now you can play out with it. So there is a way. So that's the screenshot that you will see. And then after that, you can clone. So you can download the work that someone else after you've worked. So through the GitHub here, I can just demonstrate quickly. So here, file, clone repository. So you can clone anything from your repository to your local one. So you can choose this one and then clone, and then it will give you your repository in the local one as well. But you can do that one, but don't mess up with the someone else work. So like we can clone like the my test run if you want. So here I already forked and then cloned the DH 2020 test run here. So open in Atom. So I created this one just to quickly demonstrate. Save. And then it tells you that like, oh, there is a new sentence. So I'm gonna just commit to the master. And then you can push origin. And then it's there. So instead of going through a step-by-step syntax, the GitHub desktop basically kind of does some of the work for you. So it's really easy to use. And then I really like GitHub desktop, especially for beginner. But again, sorry for the time constraint, but everything is in my slides with the screenshot. So you can easily follow after that. So a few things that I wanted to mention about the collaboration. So always synchronize your branch before starting any work on your one, because sometimes there is, if you don't do that, then Git tell you there is a conflict, and then it's a little bit time consuming kind of to go back and then change everything. And then also just change small step by step instead of like big change at a time, because later it gives you really a headache. And then always keep the clean version in their master branch, and then you can test out everything in the branch, and then have a good commit message, and then describe why merge is needed when you create a pull request. So those two resources, like they're really helpful and then very well written. So if you want to know more about the Git and GitHub, use those resources. So thank you so much. And then that's all for my presentation.
That was incredible, Yoo Young. I don't know how you got us so seamlessly and just with such calm relaxation through 83 slides. So for anyone who wasn't necessarily following along on their own computer, this video will be put on our YouTube channel by the end of the week or over the weekend. And I usually tweet about it when it's done, just so everybody knows. But we also provide a link on the dhsite.org website. So if you're not on Twitter, just check back next week and you'll know if it's been posted. This was so thorough, so incredible. It's going to be a workshop that we'll be able to refer to for many years to come, to be honest. I think it's going to be an incredible resource for anyone teaching in digital humanities, or anyone who's just getting started with GitHub and really isn't sure where to start. So thank you so much for walking us through all of this so carefully. And I echo Connie's clap, 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 clap in the Q&A. Thank you so much. This was really incredible. Before we go, I just want to remind everybody that we're back in the creator space and online on Wednesday, October 12th for a workshop with Constance Crompton called Static, a Workflow for Building Websites That Last. So do join us, whether in person or virtually, for that next session. And I wish you all a wonderful week. And as always, if you have questions, feel free to email us at dhnarts@uottawa.ca, and I can make sure that any messages get transferred on to the appropriate person if they're not directly for me. Have a great week, and we'll see you all in 2 weeks.